The idea being, if you're watching this content, you are probably trying to achieve financial freedom, make work optional. And if you're watching my channel specifically, it's probably because you're lazy and you want to do it in such a way that you can do it while you're working full time. I was a single parent raising 3 kids. And it seems like rentals become everything. Financial freedom becomes everything. We don't have to focus on money forever, but for now we do, for a few years. Those first 5 years are going to be really slow, feel like they take forever. And since you focus on it so much, you're probably looking for people, investors in your area to talk with. You're probably reading books about it, listening to audiobooks, watching podcasts here on YouTube, educating yourself on financial freedom and real estate. And since it's so much of a focus of yours, what if everyone did this? What if everybody bought a rental? And the first thought that my brother Dale, who's my guest today, had was, well, you'd have no renters. If everybody owned the rentals, you wouldn't have anybody to rent from you.
Yep.
So since it's such a big concern that so many people would buy rentals, I want to actually thank Michelle, who asked this question during last week's live stream to make me think about this. It's that the idea that your mind can't perceive a negative. Right now, if I said, don't think of a blue elephant, you can't not think of a blue elephant. So when you're thinking about rentals and you see the books and the podcasts and you're buying rentals and you're making offers and you're hunting for deals, it's all you think, it's all you see. So you can't understand, the human mind doesn't process this way, that there are people who aren't doing that. And my example as to why this is not a concern of mine, why I'm not really worried about a whole bunch of people buying rentals, is because while there is competition, think about everybody that you talk to. Yes, there are some people that you talk to who watch our content. If you go to the local meetups, you're talking to people who watch the same channels. So it seems like they understand rentals, but think about your friends and family. And every time you mention owning rentals, how many people jump in and go, it's too risky, it's too much work, it's too easy to fail. Or you have people who have no idea how the industry works and they say things like, Dion, I'm really glad I'm not in your shoes because you have all those rentals and now interest rates are up above 7%. So there's no way you can make it work, not understanding that the interest rates you got at 3% in 2020 are 30-year fixed rate debt and they don't change when the interest rates do. So there's so many people who have looked into rentals that will never buy one. They don't want to deal with tenants, toilets, or termites. Or they think they have too big of a heart and they don't want to charge somebody rent. They wouldn't want to raise the rent. They're too concerned with that. And they don't realize you can solve the problem if you have too big of a heart by hiring a property manager. But think about how many people you've interacted with who you think would make great landlords, who could reach financial freedom, who hate the job they have, who are as lazy as me and don't want to work forever. But I get 1, maybe 2,000 views on a video. And if somebody puts a GoPro on the collar of a cat, they get 7 million views within a week. Or if you go to Gotham Chess and you look at almost any of the videos that they've come out with, they get 600,000 views in a day. Wow. So people will watch videos on almost anything. And there's a very limited number of our society who will watch videos. And then let's take it one step further. Of the people who watch these videos, some of them are just our haters. There's this group of people we call the crash bros. Now, all they do is they talk about the real estate crash that's coming. There's been a reason every year since 2012. In 2013, prices finally went up above where they were in 2008. So they're too high, they must crash. 2015, we had a silver tsunami coming. We had all the baby boomers were going to retire, so all the properties were going to hit the market and cause a crash. 2018, interest rates were above 6%, and that's unsustainable, so it has to cause a crash. 2020, we had a pandemic and an eviction moratorium. In 2021, we had all of the foreclosures of people coming off of forbearance. Every single year, there's been a reason for a crash. How many people are watching that content? Because they get a lot more views than the people who say, here's how you reach financial freedom, one rental at a time, that will never own a rental, that feel justified not taking action because they're waiting for the crash. So the people who do watch our content that aren't the haters, of the ones who watch, how many are actually taking action? Watching now or in Futureland, how many people made 3 offers in the last 7 days? That kind of taking action, who might actually end up owning a rental by the end of the year or adding their next one to their portfolio. So if we sit back, and because we're so exposed to real estate podcasts, real estate YouTube videos, audiobooks, investors that we talk to, some of our friends that are supportive, friends or family members, it seems like everyone we know is talking real estate because it becomes our focus if it's what you actually want to use to reach financial freedom. But that's such a small percentage of people that even though we have a government that has a tax incentive program, I don't know if you've ever thought about this before, but the government doesn't need employees. They're actually actively currently trying to cause unemployment to go up by raising interest rates so that businesses have to lay people off, because wage inflation causes inflation, and to make inflation less, they're trying to get people laid off. So that your government is actively trying to cost you your W-2 job if you're watching this. So people who are working a job pay almost the highest tax bracket, somewhere around 40% if you look at most of the average of state and federal. And we need housing, we need innovation, we need businesses. So we need gross domestic product to grow. So we have a tax incentive program that the people who work for businesses, the people who run and own the businesses, are paying around 20% in taxes. And the people who invest in real estate, because we need housing to be built. I mean, hopefully I've shared the chart with people on how many homes were built in the last 10 years compared to the 10 years before that. We're at a fraction of what we need. We incentivize people by saying, if you are an investor in real estate, you're probably going to pay zero in taxes. And even with that tax incentive program, very few people are doing it. So if you ever have that concern of what if everybody did this, it can happen where your market becomes super competitive. Maybe your asset class was really hunted after. In the last 10 years, with the advent of YouTube University, more people are hunting for small multifamily, right? So you have a lot of investors as your competition. And if you're buying single family homes, our largest competition is home buyers, not investors. So even in that case, we're not really competing with people who would buy rentals. There are some other asset classes you can look at, but someone in your area is investing successfully. It should be you. My rant is over on the people that I've talked to that ask, what if everyone owned a rental? My question is, you don't need all of the rentals. You just need the next one. And before I jump into the questions in the comments, this is going to be a live stream. So this intro will be taken out as a video in the future, but this live stream will go on probably an hour or so, where I'm going to answer all of the questions that come up in the chat. So this gives you a chance to get your real estate, financial freedom questions into the chat. And I want to talk a little bit about my guest that's with me today. This is my brother, Dale. You have met my brother, David. All of the siblings in my family, names start with D, so they started running out of names. That's why I got the girl name out of the bunch. I'm the youngest and I'm the laziest, and you're probably going to hear about that tonight. Dale lives in California, where I'm visiting. Down here, I'm in Ventura for the week. Yep. That's what we call California when you're not. California. Yeah. Okay. That's kind of correct. Kind of correct. Dale is the unlicensed arborist, runs a tree service in Southern California. Tree work sucks so bad. It's actually one of the reasons why I joined the Marine Corps, because it's easier than tree work. Dale is a mystic that does distance healing. So if you have questions on spirituality and how you can relate things in your life to your health, this would be the night to ask those questions. Yeah. Those are not things that I know about or can talk about. So we'll cover a little bit of those subjects. I actually just wanted Dale here to see what it's like to be here during a live stream. Yeah. So I have a question to start with. I think we talked about a couple of those in the beginning, and then I will get to these here. I think I'll ask you a question on spirituality, and then you ask me that question on real estate that you had. All right. So as an investor, most of us focus on our finances. And as we get closer to financial freedom and we think, I'm going to retire, this was something that dawned on me last year. I turned 52 and I thought, okay, if I retire now, I'll have pretty much a decade of early retirement before the normal retiring age of 62 or 60 something that people do. And as soon as you retire early and you realize you have all your time back and you want to do it at a point in your life where you can enjoy it before your health starts to fail. I'm wondering that since health for me has always been related to working out, I want to say eating right, but I don't. I should eat better. What are things that people can do to help improve their health especially as they're coming close to retiring and getting all that time back, because so many people retire when they're in their 60s or 70s and their health is already gone.
Yeah. I'd say a positive outlook. Enjoy life, enjoy being active. A lot of people think there's just a magic pill that fixes everything, but it's not real. Appreciate things, go to the beach, take time to enjoy life.
I think that's something Zuber says all the time, a friend of ours that has a big community of people, one rental at a time.
Yeah.
He talks about celebrating the wins, taking the time to enjoy them.
Exactly. Appreciate what you got. Nothing wrong with asking for more, but be thankful for what you got. And pray positively. A lot of people pray in a worried way, and that's kind of, everybody does it the same way. Get creative with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I got a question for you.
Okay.
Why are we not building as many houses as we used to?
Yeah, so that was something we were talking about earlier, and I shared this with you. So I'm going to share this with the people watching the video now. This is how many homes we built per decade. So in the year 2010 to 2020, we built the same number of homes basically as we did in the 1930s.
Yeah.
And so we had 26 million, 27 million, and all of a sudden 5.8 million homes built. In 2008, we had a housing crash, and we had a recession that was caused by a housing crash.
Yeah.
And whenever you build a house, so a lot of people think, okay, I want to buy a rental that's already in place. There's a home that's been built, and I'm going to buy it with tenants in place. I'm super lazy. I don't actually do rehabs or anything. I actually buy a property that has tenants in place. I have a strategy that gets my tenants to ask me to raise the rent. So it makes it a lot easier for me to do that.
Yeah.
But when a builder builds a home, they use short-term debt. So sometimes 1 or 2 year loans to get the money together to build to buy the property, put in septic, put in connect to sewer, connect to power, connect to water, all the utilities, the build, the permits, the plans, the construction. That funding comes from a bank that generally has almost what, as an investor, we would call hard money. At a 1 year or 2 year point, interest rates go way up. The cost of that money is really expensive. So the builder wants to borrow the money to build the property and then sell the property to pay off the loan and make a profit. That's generally the way that they do that.
All right.
Well, in 2008, here's why there was a housing crash. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so that I'm a little easier to see. But here's why we had a housing crash in 2008. A lot of people think it was because home prices were so high, and that really had nothing to do with it. Home prices right now, can you imagine how lucky you would be to be able to buy a house at 2008 prices?
Oh, yeah.
Right now, they're 2-3 times that in most places.
Yeah.
But before 2008, people were using loans like the builders. They're called adjustable rate loans, which means you buy a property and you get an interest rate of 3, 4, 5, 6%, and you can afford the payment. But in 2 years or 3 years, that rate adjusts. So it goes from 2% or 6% to 8 or 10%. So all of a sudden your mortgage payment goes from $1,000. This happened to me, $1,000 to over $1,600.
Wow.
So if your income doesn't go up all of a sudden, you can't afford to pay that. The idea was lenders were saying you'll be able to refinance because home prices keep going up. So you'll just have so much equity, you can get a new loan, you'll be able to afford it. Well, home prices didn't go up. And people were doing what are called ninja loans. No income, no job, no assets. So ninja. So you go into a bank and you say, I make $400,000 a year, and sign a loan. They lend you all the money. So you have an adjustable rate, borrowing more than you should because you don't really make what you told the bank.
Yeah.
And then there was one more aspect. People would borrow 105%. So if you're buying a $100,000 house, they borrow $105,000. That $5,000 would pay for the closing costs. So you'd really be able to buy a house with nothing out of your pocket.
Wow.
So borrowing more than you should, more than the property's worth, and your rate adjusts. So we had a housing crash. Well, lenders don't want to do build loans because people were using adjustable rate loans, and those were being sold on a secondary market. And so all the banking system got like what's called toxic loans. All those loans, people couldn't pay them, but the banks were selling them together. So it became really hard for builders to make money building homes. And so the starter level home, the $200,000 or $300,000 homes, they couldn't do. So even this 5.8 million homes that we were having built, those were generally your very high end, $700,000, $800,000 homes.
Yeah.
So we don't have the entry level starter homes coming in now. So we have a shortage of homes. And that's the main reason why prices are so high, even with interest rates up, was we just don't have the supply to support what we need. We needed 27 million homes built in the last 10 years, and we had a little over 5 million.
Wow.
So hopefully that made a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to go through the questions in the chat. Feel free to go a little off topic with real estate. And, I've dealt with transportation, law enforcement, Marine Corps. Dale is more the spiritual side of the family. I don't know which one of us is more the black sheep. I know the rest of the family is pretty much disown both of us for several different reasons. This, by the way, is the other brother who built the plywood airplane and threw me off the barn twice, in case you're wondering. And we fought more than anyone I know when we had bite marks that left scars.
Yeah.
Until one time I had a surgery that was life-threatening, and I got attacked by somebody, and Dale came out of somewhere and beat the crap out of that guy. I don't think we fought since then.
Nope.
So it must
We
have
don't
been
need to fight no more.
We don't need to fight anymore.
Nope.
It could be that I became a defensive tactics instructor. I got 3 different black belts, but I'm just saying that's just probably mildly related. Simply Z, howdy. Of the 3 Amigos courses, which one would you recommend we start with? We'll watch in Futureland. So I think Matt the Lumberjack Landlord's course is more designed for somebody who has rentals and wants to be better at self-managing and doing rehabs and getting construction management. Like if you have rentals and you want to perfect your processes, that's where the Lumberjack Landlord comes in. Me and Zuber, I think Zuber's course is like half the cost of mine. So if you're looking to save money, his is probably the way to go. He has a lot of experts that come in and talk. So he's got Matt and me and Millennial Mike and Matt the mortgage guy, and a bunch of experts together to give you a ton of information. My course is for the lazy person that's looking for the simplest way to acquire rentals. But all of our information is here on YouTube. There is nothing that we do in our course that's the secret sauce behind a paywall. The idea behind the courses is I have about 6,000 hours of content on my channel. Zuber has over, I think, 10,000 videos now with his experts. If you want the information in the most concise format, chronologically formatted in a curriculum style, that's where choosing one rental at a time probably makes the most sense. It's like I said, it's less costly than mine. Mine is more designed for somebody who wants to do this while you're working full-time, raising kids, going to self-manage your properties. So it depends on if you're going to use property management. If you want to scale like Zuber, he recycled capital, I recycled cash flow. I hope that helps. But just remember, before you take any of the courses, all of our information is here on YouTube. The courses are really to filter it down to the actionable steps to reach financial freedom with real estate. Dividend Dave. Howdy. Question for Dave. Are there lenders who look at you being in the same industry for 2 years who don't look at you as being in the same industry for 2 years? And these are questions that came up before I mentioned that you were going to.
Yeah.
So Dave, as far as lenders go with the 2 years, there are some lenders that will look at less than 2 years. You kind of have to shop around. I'd call Matt the mortgage guy or email him and figure out if he knows of some. If I was going to do a loan and I didn't have 2 years in the same industry, I would look at asset-based, DSCR, or seller financing as the primary options, because those generally they don't care where you've worked or what you've worked in, what your salary is, what your debt to income ratio is. Your credit score is going to matter, but that kind of takes you out of the my work history and my income are a factor. They're specifically to lenders. I can't say which ones do and which ones don't because they don't know usually. The same lender that can tell you no now will say yes in 2 weeks. So I would lender shop, but before I really put a lot of effort into hunting down the 1 or 2 lenders that will look at a shorter period for your work history, I would definitely look at DSCR loan, asset-based lending, or seller financing. Seller financing is the one that you might be able to get into with the lower down payment. Asset-based and DSCR are going to want more down. And then I see Lauren did a super sticker here. Thank you for the phone call. I appreciate it. Hopefully the call was helpful. It is hard to get started. This is not an industry that you can just walk right into and just start owning rentals. I think you and your daughter are going to be getting into rentals.
Yeah.
She has the GI Bill. You guys are going to use a house hack strategy.
Yeah.
You currently own a paid off house in California, which I'm sorry, you live in California still. But
Yeah.
other than having that paid off house. Howdy, Lauren. Brian, Keith, howdy. All-nighter hiders heading to Alaska back in July. I think you're going to stop in Washington at some point. And Tamika's in Alaska. Howdy. Maybe you guys can go to lunch. All-nighter hider knows his stuff. I would pick his brain. Bill O'Connell just picked up a late rent. And they had a new Ford Mustang they had to show me. I'm driving a 2009 without air conditioning. And all I could think about is this one rental at a time.
Huh.
So we actually talked about that a little bit earlier.
That's funny.
One of the things that I mentioned in my video, so I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Just be as honest and transparent as you want.
All right.
Without being racist. I consider all of my tenants to be richer than I am. The fact that they can afford to pay rent baffles me. Tell people how our childhood. Well, first, where were you born?
I was born in the back of a police car on the way to the hospital.
And where was I born?
At the dentist office.
All right. And
yeah.
And I don't know if you knew this or not. Do you know why our socials are all the same except for one digit?
No.
Because none of us had social security numbers till I went to join the Marine Corps.
Oh, we got them all.
So all of us had to get them all on
Okay,
the same
that
day.
makes
And there's like 11 years between oldest and youngest.
Okay.
But our homes, explain the homes we lived in. So this is with no input from me.
Geez. It's kind of unbelievable, but kind of like Little House on the Prairie. We hardly ever had electric or television or anything like that. Basically shacks that nobody would live in. My dad moved us in there and he patched the roof a little bit, try to get the toilet working. That was home. And then eventually somebody knock on the door saying that they've owned that place and they want 14 years or so back rent. And then all of a sudden we had to move to another dilapidated place, chase the rats out and make it like a campsite. It was quite a experience, but I'll never live like that again.
So seeing cowboy hats, you probably think we were in the boonies. This was in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we were in the middle of nowhere.
No.
We ended up in the middle of nowhere. We moved to Rosemont.
Yeah, that was in the middle of nowhere.
So I would go to friends' houses when I was a kid, and I would hear their parent Jackie and Jake and right up the street, right?
Yeah.
And I would hear their parents talking about their rent.
Yeah.
It was like $1,200 a month or something. It was a really nice house, and for the time, I couldn't believe that they paid that. And then I couldn't believe that they did that every single month. Like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
You could just live anywhere you wanted for free. Just fix it up until someone kicked you out.
Yep.
So when I show up, Bill, and you have a tenant who's paying their rent a little bit late and they're showing you their brand new Ford Mustang and you're driving a, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old car that doesn't have AC or anything, I completely understand. Every single tenant to me seems like they live a more rich lifestyle than I did for at least 5 years. For at least 5 years of investing, I just don't get how people can afford to pay rent. It's one of the reasons why you focus to pay your house off, is to not have that mortgage.
Yeah.
If there's anybody out there that's looking at retiring early, it doesn't have to be your primary house, in my opinion. I have a paid off rental and just bought another. I'm buying I'm closing in a couple of weeks on another property that'll be paid off. But okay. Having one or two paid off properties is a massive step towards being able to retire early. What I did for a while was called house hacking, where I lived in the duplex and the other person paid the mortgage.
Yeah.
Now I'm in that fourplex where the other three people pay the mortgage and give me money.
Yeah, I remember when you did that.
Yeah. Nice. Bill, Lauren, howdy. Dave, John, Jason, howdy. Michelle, howdy. You were the reason for the intro this morning, or the start of this video. Is that Michelle has a question about your shirt?
Oh,
is that the time on your shirt when all lost souls are coming into our dreams?
Oh, that's funny. Actually, it's pretty much right. Around 3 a.m. Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. My daughter gave me this shirt because I always get up around 4 in the morning. Get up, get ready for work, and live that kind of lifestyle. Pay as many taxes as I can.
The story I got the first time was the blue spherical ball of energy
Oh yeah,
that wakes you.
about that time. Yeah,
Okay,
a lot of things happen. Yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning is the actual what they call the witching hour. It's in mockery of 3 o'clock p.m., which is the hour that Jesus died on the cross. So everybody thinks midnight is the magical hour where everything happens. Really 3 a.m.
It's usually the time I'm going to bed.
Yep.
That's kind of the point.
When I'm getting up.
I actually say to myself, it's
Yeah.
getting early, time
Yeah.
for bed. Julie Anderson, howdy. Why do people keep telling me I should sell? My property has doubled in value since I bought them in 2018. So a lot of people are going to tell you that you have dead equity. Your properties have appreciated, maybe you've paid them down, you have all that money sitting there. And I used to ask what I not would consider the wrong question, but there's 3 questions, and I used to ask 2. The first question that everybody would ask me is, what do I do with my equity and how do I get to it? And I would give the answer of, you could take out a home equity line of credit. You probably don't want to touch the existing mortgage because if you bought it in 2018, you might have refinanced in 2020. You might have like a 3% interest rate. So you don't want to mess with the current mortgage. And I would say, so then maybe a second mortgage is an option. So it leaves the first mortgage alone. You have a home equity line of credit or cash out refinance. The HELOC I would only do if I could pay it off before the rate adjusts. And the second mortgage I would do if I was going to do long-term fixed rate debt, right? So I kind of had that question. And I used to say, well, the first question that people don't start with is, do you have a use for the money? If you sold your house, Julie, is everybody telling you sell it because you'll have all this money? What would you do with it? Right? Would you take vacations, buy an RV and a boat? That'd be stupid. That would cost 2008 again. But if you knew of rentals that you could buy that would make more money than your current properties, I could kind of almost see that a 1031 exchange to buy those properties to increase your cash flow could make sense. But here's the third question. And this came up to me. This is the first question I would ask. Came up during Zuber's 100 member or less Zoom call that we did. You bought a property in 2018. It's doubled in value. So let's say right now it's worth 600,000 and you bought it for 300,000. So it's literally doubled in value. And you have an interest rate of 3%. Right now, Julie, if the house across the street, if it was exactly the same, was on sale for $300,000 when you could sell yours for $6 million, and that $300,000 one, you could get a 3% interest rate loan on. Would you buy it? Would you buy the property now that you got in 2018 for that price and those rates? So for me, anytime somebody says you should sell, if you thought I could buy it for 2008 price, 18 price, 2018 interest rates, I would buy that today. Why would you sell it? Why would anybody sell something you would pounce on to buy today? So if you have a place to deploy the funds that will get you a better return, maybe a HELOC or a cash out refinance, the selling for 1031, I don't think I've ever met an investor that doesn't regret selling properties. You might have a problem one with really high turnover that you just hated and got rid of, but if almost everybody looks at a house they used to own and thinks, I wish I still did. That would be my answer. Miguel, howdy. What are your thoughts on going with hard money? It's a strategy that can work. One of the problems with books like Brandon Turner has the book on how to invest with low or no money, meaning that you borrow hard money, do a BRRRR project or something. Brandon also clarifies by saying it doesn't mean you don't have money. It's a strategy to invest without a lot of your own money. So hard money can be used if the money will generate more when you buy the property, get the BRRRR done. But what if the rehab takes longer than you expect? What if the cost of materials goes up? What if there's a labor shortage? What if there's supply chain issues where it takes longer and you hit the end of your hard money? I would only want to do that if I have the funds to cover mistakes that are probably going to happen. And I had the skill set to do it. So I don't recommend using hard money or doing something like the BRRRR that you would usually use hard money for in the first few years of investing, because that tends to be when you make your biggest mistakes. But somebody like Lumberjack Landlord or Millennial Mike that's been investing for over a decade, has cash flow from several rentals, has the reserves, and then uses hard money to perform a deal where if it blew up in their face, it's frustrating, not bankruptcy causing. Sure. Financial firefighter, aloha. I was in Hawaii too. I came down here to Ventura, California. We went out to Rosemont. It was 95 degrees. We come back to the beach. It's in the 60s. It's 87 degrees up in Washington, so we missed the good weather.
Huh.
Michelle sees the time. Tony also wants to know what the time is on your shirt. Nice. My brothers, when they come on, they have the interesting shirts. David's had a couple on here that were pretty good. It's Clownifornia. Okay. Nice. Thanks, Snyder. Initially, you saw 357. Yeah, that would have been more of a me shirt.
367.
67.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's plus tax.
Nice. Wealth building journey. I'm exhausted. I only came up with gray elephant instead of a blue one. Nice. Michelle, I want to know what it means to see heart-shaped forms everywhere. Seemed like it was related to a person, but I'm not sure now.
That's weird. I've been seeing heart-shaped forms everywhere also.
We saw
the last
one
couple
yesterday.
days for me. Really?
Yeah, there's that Chuck's right here in Ventura. There's a giant 20-foot heart sitting on its side.
Oh, well, it definitely means something. It's showing up that much.
Okay. Well, we have to figure that out.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it is.
Zero to hero. Howdy.
Huh.
After purchasing your first house hack, what was the reason that you moved out and got an apartment? So close remembering my chronology. So I owned a house that wasn't an investor in. Basically bought a house, white picket fence, going to raise the kids there, and never invest was the plan. Work until I die. Decided to invest when I was 40. I had kept the house through the divorce. So I had a single family house, had a bad debt to income ratio. I found out about the $89,000 in debt in my name that I didn't know existed till the divorce. Started teaching people how to drive trucks after getting laid off from law enforcement. I was making $17 an hour. So low income, change in careers, but bad debt. So I moved into an apartment before buying a house hack. So from my house, I went into the apartment so I could rent the house out because this did a couple of things. One, it let me work in that field long enough to have 2 years, like Dividend Dave asked about having 2 years of, the same industry. I wasn't a CDL instructor before that. So it gave me time to get that. But two, it got me rental income on my tax returns so that I could use the rental income on the other side of the duplex to buy that first house hack duplex. So it was 2 years of saving, 2 years of rental income. Then I bought the duplex with a 5% down conventional owner occupied loan. So that was why I did that. The reason I moved out of the duplex is because I purchased my fourplex. That let me rent out both units in the duplex instead of just the one I wasn't living in. And I moved into a fourplex that had positive cash flow. So the duplex started making me about $800 a month when I moved out, and the fourplex was making me like $1,700 while I lived there. So those two together added $2,500 a month to my income just because I moved across town. So that's the beginning chronology of how impactful house hacking can be.
Huh.
These are bigger numbers than I ever thought I would have.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Kevin says, thanks for doing this. Thank you for hanging out with us, Kevin.
Thank you.
Are you able to rent out an attached ADU as a separate unit if you are not house hacking? Does it get weird with mail deliveries, shared utilities, and other things like that? So that's a great question. With most ADUs, my preference is to pay to have the separate utilities put in. So you can get quotes on doing that, see if it'll be permittable. If you can, Michael Zuber's solution to ADUs that aren't separate meters is he rents to families. So you'll have, two different generations from the same family renting and one the ADU. A lot of people rent out ADUs, which just means an accessory dwelling unit, like a mother-in-law house, saying, David housed the two houses. That's exactly what an ADU is. If you can separate meter them, if not, include the utility costs in the rent. So you mentally raise the rent where it covers the utility costs. I don't like to do that because I don't like losing sleep thinking the door and the window is open and the heater's on.
Yeah.
Right. And you can be responsible for that. Water's going full blast. Right.
Yeah.
So whenever you can, you try to put utilities in the tenant's name when possible. It doesn't mean it's a deal breaker if you can't, but try to incorporate it. What I do with some of my duplexes, like where Dale is, not my brother, another Dale that we know, the water has to be in the owner's name and it's not separate metered and the tenants can't pay it. So I charge a flat fee but $55 for each side. And then I pay the water bill. That way there's some months of the year where I make a little bit of money. And then in the summer when they do watering, gardening, something, and it spikes, the rest of the profit from the year kind of covers that to balance out. So I try not to make any money on utilities. Some states actually won't let you. Mine doesn't care, but I just try to make it to where I balance out. The mail, you can actually usually, depending on your town, register the ADU as a separate mailing address, just like a duplex. The idea is it's an ADU and it's a mother-in-law house, granny flat, your family that it was originally built for can get their mail at their own place too. And you might have to put up another mailbox or have a separate wall mounted, like a small multifamily, just 2 addresses on the same property. Tamika, reflecting on the early days, how did you qualify for traditional lending? I just covered that with the house hacking and take advantage of depreciation on your taxes. Did you have trouble showing needed income for multiple properties? So that's one of the things that's very confusing. Don't say anything that gets you thrown in jail.
All right.
Some people who run a business don't claim all of their income on their taxes.
Yeah.
Some people who run a furniture delivery company might have had a transmission put in when really all they had was a starter done. And people lie and cheat on their taxes all the time. You buy a car, you take it to the DMV, you register it, you say it was a gift and it doesn't run and you have to get it running. Like there's all kinds of gray areas, right? You don't do that with real estate. You can get audited, and to be bankable, you actually want to claim the income. You want to say every penny that's coming in, look how much money I made, so you will lend me millions of dollars because of depreciation. So when I moved from my house into the apartment to rent it out, I was no longer living in the house, so I didn't get the standard deduction. I got to start the depreciation schedule of that house, which is about 3% of the value. It's 27.5 years. Divided out, your CPA will do all of that for you. When I lived in the duplex, I occupied 50% of the structure. So 50% of the structure was depreciable. Living in the fourplex, I live in 1/4, so 25%. 75% of it is depreciable. The tax benefits to real estate make you want to claim your income. Last year, after principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and setting aside 15% for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, I profited $203,000 and I paid 0 rental income tax. I could have claimed one, carried forward a loss. You want to show the income. So yes, I was able to show the income, actually document the payments. That's why the 3 things that want to happen when I collect rents and when you start getting into your rentals with Angel.
Yeah.
I want, 1, it's easy for the tenant. So Apple Pay, Cash App, PayPal, check, ACH, Zelle, Venmo, whatever works for the tenant. 2nd, I want it to leave an electronic paper trail. I want there to be proof for the audit that this is where the income came from, because I'm trying to prove income. It's literally the opposite of running a business.
Yeah.
You're trying to show how much money you made.
Yeah.
And 3, I want to save myself a trip to the bank. So that's why I like the apps. If it's a check, I'll deposit it. Like I'm on a trip, I just deposited a check the other day with the app on the phone. I have one tenant who gives me like 6 months worth of checks at a time, and I just deposit them once a month.
Very cool.
So hopefully that helps, Tamika. You qualify for traditional lending. I really didn't. That's why it took 2 years to get the rental income on my tax returns and to have enough time in the same industry. I didn't understand DSCR loans, asset-based lending, or seller financing, which all would have been options when I was starting. Laura, howdy. This is a nice lady that I met in Florida who's from Panama and investing in Florida. Very much reminded me of Mom.
Oh, wow.
So Dale looks like your twin. Oh,
it's funny.
Very sorry that anyone on the planet would say that. For a second, I thought you were doing one of those double Dions where I used to talk to myself.
Oh, I've seen those.
Okay.
Yep. That's funny.
He just admitted to watching my videos. I win.
That's funny. Only so I could criticize you. If you ever make a mistake, I'll let you have it.
I'm sure you did. That's what David does.
Yeah.
David literally calls me. I watched this video and it like 14 minutes in, you did this. Did you know that was a mistake?
That's funny.
0 to hero. What do you predict to happen to interest rates in the coming years? On a podcast I listened to, they talk about 5 and 10 year ARMs. Getting a 10-year ARM makes a little sense because you get 10 years to refinance. So I'm very sorry. I need to apologize in advance that I was the actual cause of the 2008 housing crash. I did a ninja loan. I bought a house for more than I can afford. I wrapped up 105% because I put the closing costs into the loan. And when the rate adjusted, it was an adjustable rate loan. And I had been laid off from law enforcement. So it actually took a refinance for, I was the toxic loan that was probably sold. I ended up making the payments, working overtime, working side hustles, never lose the property, refinanced to a new 30-year fixed rate loan. Wouldn't touch adjustable rate. If it was a 50-year loan, I wouldn't have an adjustable rate loan. So when people say, oh, it's 10 years out, no. Interest rates can be 20% in 10 years. We have no idea. And everybody, we all have such short memories that for the last 40 years, we've had interest rates going on a downward trajectory. We just expect that to happen. Doesn't mean it's going to keep happening. If you're like Matt, the lumberjack landlord, you have 137 properties, rentals with like 40 something properties, and you have one or two adjustable and the cash flow can handle it. If rates went to 50%, sure, take the risk. But as an investor with me with a small portfolio that wants the most amount of cash flow from the least amount of units, I would not do an adjustable rate loan no matter what the terms were. So ARMs, no, I would stay away from an adjustable rate loan. Here's what I predict to happen with interest rates. If they go down, prices go up. If they go up, prices go up. That's not inversely proportionate. They don't go down if the other ones go up. So if interest rates go down, prices are going to go up. So if interest rates go up, prices are going to go up. This is historically proven. The last time interest rates doubled was in the 1970s and home prices almost tripled. Everybody since 2020 has been saying interest rates are going to be going up, so prices are going to come down. Show me where that's happened. Right? We might have somewhere it's plateauing, or you might have some markets, there's about 400. You have about 15 markets where it's coming down, but that's market specific. That's not because of interest rates. That's people moving out of an area, less economic drivers, political reasonings. I like to take from Warren Buffett. If Warren Buffett knew what the interest rates were going to be in 2 years, it wouldn't change how he's going to invest. There's only two things that tell you when to invest. It's not interest rates, it's not prices, it's not the market, it's not anything that's going on except for these two things. Anybody who's telling you to wait to buy because of interest rates, prices, or rents or anything is a jackass. Anybody who's telling you to hurry up and buy because of interest rates, prices, or rents is a jackass. There is no way to time the market. The first thing they can tell you if you're ready to buy, if it's time to buy, is if you're ready. Nothing going on in your life like a birth, death, divorce, change of jobs, serious health condition, something that takes away your focus from being able to do the right kind of purchase. That's the first thing. Are you ready? Which also means you have the reserves, down payment, closing cost money to make it, rent ready, or the financing availability to do hard money for your BRRRR or a DSCR loan or asset-based or seller financing. So like you're ready to do all of those things. And the second thing is you found a great deal. You might find a great deal tomorrow. It might be 2 years from now. I bought my last duplex in May of 2021. I hunted since then, not as actively while I was considering Portugal. I kind of took a step back, but I hunted since 2021, May of 2021. Didn't find the great deal. Made some offers, got some accepted, backed down, got a lot not accepted. And then I'm under contract for my next duplex. So it took me, I was ready, no birth, death, divorce, health, change of jobs. I mean, I retired, but that doesn't count. And so I was ready. I just never found the deal until now. So I wouldn't be concerned with what rates are going to do. I would stay away from ARMs unless you have a massive portfolio and you're doing it with a small. It's like, I don't invest in crypto, but I completely respect how Michael Zuber bought 1% of his net worth in crypto. Just as a gamble, because if he loses it all, who cares? If it turns into something, that's great. But I don't invest as an asset class. I wouldn't use an ARM as an investing strategy, but I could use it as a very small amount of a larger portfolio. So it's a good question. It's hard to say what you should do. That's just what I would do. T. Adams, howdy. I'm spiritual, not religious. A phrase I've heard you say
many
1,000 times.
Same here.
I think everyone is just a part of pure energy source. Therefore, when we die, we just go back to the main source. Read the book called The Great Play. It's basically that story. You're part of the energy. We're going to live the life. You can't pick when you're born, where you're born, or anything about your life. You experience it and go back to the energy.
It's interesting.
Thank you for the super sticker, Lauren. That's much appreciated. I think there was a super chat here. Dividend Dave. Nice weather in Washington is karma for ditching you, because Dividend Dave is visiting Washington right now.
Yeah.
But thank you for that, Dave. Rainey, howdy. Good to see you in the members only live stream the other night. I hope that was helpful. Would you recommend putting down a deposit while using GI Bill? Deposit while using GI Bill. I think you mean VA loan. Maybe with GI Bill. Deposit while you use so GI Bills for education. So I think I'm going to assume, never make an assumption. You make an ass out of you and
Oh, yeah.
Would you recommend putting down a deposit? So there's a few reasons why I haven't used my VA loan. Right. The first one is I don't want to be 100% levered again. Right. That problem loan I got the last time when I had an adjustable rate loan, Ninja loan, 105% wrapped up. I was 105% levered. If you do zero down VA loan, you're 100% levered. I didn't want to be that in the beginning. I would do it now because it's a very small percentage of a larger portfolio. But when starting out, Rainey, I don't know that I would do a deposit. If I was going to use the VA loan, you still can put some money down. So maybe that might have helped me use it because you can get a better interest rate with a VA loan. And the cool thing to remember with VA loans is most people are going to tell you owner occupied loans are 4 units or less. VA will do 5 units or less. So it's a big kind of game changer. You eliminate a lot of the competition because your traditional house hacking owner occupied people can only go up to 4. You have the VA loan, you go to 5. So that's when it kind of shines more. Yes, I would. And the other reason is I want it available in my back pocket, having never been touched, having all of my, it's not eligibility, but amount that you can borrow available in the future. I am probably going to be using my VA loan within the next year or 2 as an owner occupied and buying a 4 or 5-plex that pops up and then doing another house hack. And when I do it, I will probably still put some money down, even though if I was starting, I would want to do at least 20% down or 5% down or something like that. But now I'm probably going to be putting some down. It's a good question. Josh, howdy. T. Adams, I thought I grew up poor. We were in Mud Lake, Idaho with the Mormons. That was bad enough. Were you Moonies? No. No, we weren't. We were in LA. It's hard to say to people how they can understand it. We were too poor for food stamps. Because in most places you go to the state and you say, this is our income, this is the number of people in our house. And they go, okay, well, here's how much food stamps you get. In California back in the day, you gave them $1, they gave you $2 in food stamps. So we never had the dollars to get the food stamps. So what we did is we raised our own animals. Yeah. We grew up, to our friends, we seemed like the richest family they ever knew because we had horses, cows, goats, sheep, like chickens. Was there some
ducks, chickens, you name it. Rode horses to school.
I was that weird kid that rode a horse to school. Then the future farmers of America did things with the horse to use this thing. And like I said, this is weird. It's LA. This is not middle of nowhere. Miguel, howdy. I just have a quick question. If you were to restart over in 2023, would you follow the same strategy or a different route? Well, I wouldn't get married. And since I tell my kids often that they're all 3 living, breathing proof that I never developed time travel, I wouldn't have the kids. I would do the same strategy. I would house hack. I would reduce or eliminate my largest expense. I would increase my savings by working overtime, developing a side hustle. Big difference between us is Dale is an entrepreneur. He's ran a business most of his life. Have you ever had a W-2 job? You worked in a dishwasher, I think.
When I was in high school. Very short time.
I'm a W-2 employee. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm way too lazy to be motivated to do something on my own like that. It's actually the motivation to get rentals was so that I wouldn't have to do something as lazy as having a W-2. So I would house hack. I would increase my income. It would probably take me somewhere between 5 and 8 years. The first time took almost 10 because I started with all the bad debt. But if I was starting from zero now, there's so many people that say houses are unaffordable. They've been saying that since I was born. Everyone every year has said there's no way you can afford to buy a house. Nobody can afford rent. It's unaffordable. But still, imagine right now if you can go back and buy homes 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Eventually, it's going to be 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And you're going to be wishing, I wish I bought in 2023. So I would absolutely start the same way. I would probably do something like what Dale's doing. He's got the paid off house. His daughter has the the VA loan, and they're probably going to be buying small multifamily rentals together. That one of them is house hacked and rinse and repeat until you get a few. And then To quote my friend Millennial Mike,
Huh.
it sucks when you start out, you live paycheck to paycheck, but eventually you get to live your tenants paycheck to paycheck.
There you go. Hopefully they get raises and you can increase the rent.
Exactly. It's funny.
Yeah,
That works.
because things cost more.
How to demonetize your channel in 3, 2, 1.
Mhm.
Thank you, Matt, for that. Zero to hero. What was your honest opinion on investing in Gary? I noticed that you were closing on a property in Pierce Thurston. I asked because I think you might say appreciation, but we are not supposed to invest for appreciation. We're not. And Millennial Mike doesn't. And I don't. I've never done a HELOC, cash out refinance, or sold for anything. My appreciation is a fictitious made up number that will just frustrate tax people after I'm dead. I liked what I saw in Gary. I liked that Mike had the systems in place. And I know that it was street by street. You'd go to one, I've said this in some videos, so sorry if you've heard this. You'd go to one street, there'd be 10 homes. 8 of them are burned down with 2 that you might be able to live in. So you don't want to buy one of those 8 and be in the middle of a war zone.
Wow.
The one street over, there's 10 homes. 8 of them are nice and 2 of them are empty and vacant. You want to buy one of those, right? So at a distance, you don't know which street's which. So if you're going to hire somebody, if you're going to buy there, trusted boots on the ground is everything. You want them to drive that entire street so you know what you're buying next to, not just the home pictures that you're seeing. So that your tenants are going to want to live on that street. When I went to Portugal, my goal was to buy there to become a foreign investor and travel there for the winters. I hated the whole experience. The place was great. The weather was great. The people were horrible. So I'm not buying in Portugal. Maybe not even ever even going back to Portugal. We'll see. So I said, when I got back, I'm going to look, I'm going to have my search set up in Washington, and I expanded my circle. So I added a couple of markets I had to learn, just like Zuber talks about. It took me like a month. I think when you're starting, 60 to 90 days is good, but it took me a month. And I had to learn the rents. I had to figure out the good and bad markets. I went and drove them on the weekends, and I found 2 towns where the numbers make sense, and I started making offers. If those offers didn't stick, or if the numbers didn't work, if I didn't find those, I was going to do this for about 3 or 4 months. And then I was going to say, okay, it's time to put my searches in place in Gary, Indiana. I was probably going to go to the Olson Group. I was going to buy a turnkey property to get my foot in the door there, develop a relationship with a property manager, some handyman, some contractors, and I was going to grow there. My experience going to Gary for that week that me and Millennial Mike spent there was positive enough to where I would invest there if I had the trusted boots on the ground. So either I'm going to use Mike's, or I'm going to go there and travel there and develop the relationships with the trusted boots on the ground. I found the place I wanted to buy in Washington. So that was my next purchase. Doesn't mean that Gary's not good. It's just ended up being where I go to. Josh, howdy. Thank you for the super chat. Have fun in California. I enjoyed Ventura Harbor as a kid. Nice. This is actually, I grew up in LA. This is my first time to Ventura. We used to go to Santa Monica and Venice on the weekends.
Yeah.
Not sure how we never ended up in jail. It was pretty close a few times. But Ventura, this is the first time for me. So I'm enjoying this town. It's actually a lot better than I was expecting.
Yeah, it's nicer.
Yeah. There was, one other thing. I want to tell my brother Dale, thanks for coming on here and doing this and answering any of the spiritual questions that come up. I did tell him at the beginning of this that it would last about an hour. So we've got a few minutes coming before we wrap this up. I'm going to try to get through as many questions as I can. And I did tell him he was going to get all of the money from any super chats that came in tonight. So thank you all for the super chats that have come in. It helps me grow the channel. I appreciate the support, and it's probably going to get you drunk later.
Oh, geez.
And so, yeah, it wasn't zero to hero that I invested for appreciation. I invested because I found a Burr house hack in a place I want to live, with both units having 2-sided water views, literally maybe 80 feet from the water in the Puget Sound, which was kind of checked off all the boxes of what I was looking for. So it's not because of appreciation. I don't plan on selling or refinancing or HELOC or anything like that. I'll probably live there for 3 or 4 years, and then it'll become both units being rented out. Also, I get to move and rent out the rest of the unit that I am in a 4-plex, which will increase cash flow, rent out the other unit and the paid off property, because I'm doing a Burr without a refinance, because I'm using my own money. So that's really why I purchased in Washington. T. Adams, I must be a witch. Every morning at 3, I'm awake.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, there you go.
That's
So
funny.
it's not just you.
No, a lot of things happen at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Does the 3 a.m. have a time zone, or is it your location? That's from Bill O'Connor.
Oh, that's funny. I'm going to say I guess it's your time zone. 'cause
I
3
think it's
a.m.,
where
yeah.
you're at because
Yeah.
yeah, that makes the
I've
most
never
sense.
thought of that.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
mostly
question.
in here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cachatona. I'm probably saying that wrong. Howdy. Sorry if I butchered that.
Huh.
T. Adams, my understanding is that you have souls trying to reach you. Maybe someone that passed and wants to reach you.
I believe that, definitely.
I think that's kind of what you
Yeah.
talked about with the thing.
Yeah, they'll mess with electronics, your lights will flicker, things like that happen a lot. During 3 a.m.
Jason, howdy. I'm sorry, I know you have answered this already. Why is the LLC not needed again? So I'm very sorry. This is going to seem like I become emotional, but I'm not. And I'm going to try to keep this as short a rant as possible. My concern is every time I see the question in BiggerPockets or the Real Estate Rookie or Choose FI, if somebody's saying, should I have an LLC? I'm going to buy a rental property. I hate this word, but I'm going to use it. Retards jump in there with bad advice that have never owned a rental. And they say, well, you definitely want an LLC for 2 reasons that don't exist. The first is tax benefits. It doesn't have any. It's a pass-through entity. In 1996, the IRS determined all LLCs to be called disregarded entities, so they don't exist. It's not even a real thing. Second thing is asset protection doesn't exist unless you have partners. So here's a couple of the reasons why an LLC is not needed. One, if you're just starting out, there's already a lot to learn. And adding, how do you pay yourself? How do you collect your rents? How do you set it up? How do you maintain it? How do you renew it? All of those things that you have to add to the things you already have to learn already when they're not needed, and don't do the 2 things you're probably doing it because you want, don't exist. Second, your insurance can be different. Some states require that an LLC get what's called commercial insurance, which raises your rates. Not all states, but some. And some, it's just the counties because it's the insurance company specific. Third, you're more likely to be sued because people think LLCs are a company. Companies have deeper pockets than people do. Fourth, your lending gets all borked. You can't do owner occupied. You lose most of the benefits of house hacking. And most people will just say, well, commit fraud. Buy it in your name and then put it in an LLC and hope that you don't trigger the due on sale clause. Just lie to the lender. Maybe not. I wouldn't lie or commit fraud. So like there's a pretty long laundry list there of reasons why you shouldn't have an LLC. And that was as short a rant as I could make because that's about half of them. But for me, it's enough. But I will wrap up the LLC thing with there are times it makes sense to have an LLC. The purpose of an LLC, a limited liability company, is to limit you from someone else's mistakes. So if you have partners, you want an LLC. Second, if you need to use hard money, and sometimes commercial loans, the lenders might require that you have an LLC. So in those instances, it makes sense. So I'm not saying don't ever have an LLC. I'm just saying for the dumb reasons that they don't do, don't add all the extra work because the attorneys and CPAs who get paid to set them up, maintain them, and file taxes on each of them are going to tell you how much you need them. It's ironic that they make money off of the advice that they give you. Dion, is your brother close to Tarzana? Miguel, not going to say exactly where you live, but he's not far from Tarzana.
Yeah, not far from Tarzana.
Not very far from Six Flags.
Yeah.
There you go. Yes, I'm not bitter, Dave. I'll be back this weekend. I'll be back Friday. So looks like you're dressed for the truck rodeo. Again, that's from the trucking landlord. Howdy. Let me tear through here really questions, and then we'll see if we're going to wrap this up. Tread, hello. I'm painting walls in one of my rentals, listening to you. To our great, thank you. From Tread. Oh, cool. Thank you. 65 people watching and only 30 likes. Michelle, thank you for that. Every time you hit the like button, an angel gets its wings.
There we go.
Yeah, VA loan, Ronnie, thanks. No worries. I mix up VA GI Bill all the time. I actually think I did it during this
A lot of people do, I'm sure.
thing. Yeah. Even will never let me forget that now, to Rainey. Said that he would not have his kids twice over. Yes, I would definitely not have my kids. I tell them all the time. I love them because they happened.
Yeah.
But I tell my son the best thing I think he ever did was get a vasectomy at 20. It's one of the things I'm most proud of. So here's the mentality behind that. There are plenty of kids who are already born and they're going to have to suffer through most of life. You can adopt them and make their life better. Or you could be an ignorant jerk like me, have 3 kids when you don't want them, and you're with women who use protection, birth control, and swear they'll have an abortion. And instead, you bring a kid into the world who now has to suffer through everything that life throws in their face and try to make their life better instead of adopting kids. Or I could have just tried to make their life better that they were already going to have to face anyway. Michelle Meyer, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. That's another beer for you. Yeah. And there we go. I think I've gotten through most of the questions. What meditation or habits can you do to develop a more disciplined mindset? From Dividend Dave.
I wake up early every morning. Before I do anything, I do prayers, healing prayers. And that seems to work.
So there are 4,400 religions on the planet. Each one prays differently.
Yeah.
Right. How do you say that in words? Like how would you explain how you do a prayer?
Oh, geez. That's kind of hard to explain, but I don't just copy the way everybody does in church.
I didn't think so.
The Our Father and Hail Mary, I mean, God hears that all the time. So just be honest and open, You could ask questions and they'll come to you. 3 a.m. is usually when we're very relaxed, we're asleep, and that's when psychic dreams and premonitions come through. Visitations from loved ones that died, they'll come and communicate with you. And talk back to them. They hear us.
Okay, I think we'll wrap up there. That was a great way to wrap it up. Thank you very much for doing this.
Oh, cool.
My brother Dale.
Yep.
I hope this has been a video that at least makes you think. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk. Wait.